Welcome, everyone. This is our first lecture, and I'd like to start off our course really by asking a big question. Why statistics? There's a couple of ways to answer that. We're going to spend quite a bit of time in this course simply asking, how do we deal with data? How is data gathered? What is data? And what does data tell us? We'll spend enough time with that you'll learn some analytic tools and so forth. Rather than go down that avenue, I want to start by maybe taking a sort of a broader perspective, even maybe at a societal level. Why is it that we feel compelled to use statistics? And I think that's a question that's worth exploring. And so what I want to do is go through this here. So why statistics? Well, statistical claims are all around us. You listen to advertising, you listen to political debates. I mean, political debates are classic. You'll have two candidates that are making claims that are just logically opposed. They cannot both be true, yet they are citing statistics to support their position. How can this be? And why do they cite them to begin with? Well, I think that for a lot of people, citing statistics is mistaken as proof. When someone cites a statistic, we tend to consider it as proof, and that's very dangerous. There is such a thing as good statistics. There's also such a thing as bad statistics. That actually has another name. It's called lying. What we want to do is discern between the two. So what I have following here are just a few headlines that I've cherry-picked off the internet. And I want to address them. I'm not going to address the truth of them. Rather, what I want to do is ask some relevant questions, get at what the author is trying to convey, and then ask what might also be going on. So here's one to start with. We've got this headline from the UK regarding immigration. Now, immigration is a different issue in the United Kingdom than it is here. So I want to just say that ahead of time and kind of step back from that. But the government, they pledged to bring immigration down, yet it soared by 20%. Well, the reader is supposed to look at this and say, okay, government failed to do what they had set out to do. They said they'd bring it down, but it went up. And it didn't just go up by a little bit, it went up by 20%. Well, let's take this apart. First of all, the notion that it soared by 20%. Here's a good question to ask. How many people came in last year? And then how many people immigrated in this year? We don't know. The article might not even say. But let's just for a second assume that that's true, 20%. Well, last year, maybe 5 people came in. Maybe 5 people immigrated into the UK last year. And then this year, 6 people. That's an increase of 1 person. And it turns out that 1 is 20% of 5. So that 1 additional person could immigrate to the UK and that claim actually be accurate. Now, would you describe it with the word soar? Probably not. But it's still a 20% increase. It's misleading. It was only 1 additional person. On the other hand, we might also look at this and say, okay, well, people enter a country, but they also leave it. Does that take that into account? Are we only looking at the people that came in? Or are we looking at some net change in population? Again, answers to those questions, I don't know. Will most readers think to ask those? No, they're just going to read this and think, oh, government failed. They said they were going to do this, and they didn't do it. Here's another one. 92% of Americans, 89% of Republicans, and 74% of NRA members support universal background checks for gun sales. Tell Congress it's time to act. Well, look at the groups they've chosen, right? We've got 92% of Americans, the vast majority of Republicans, almost 9 in 10, and almost 3/4 of all NRA members. Of course, these two groups here, Republicans and NRA members, are going to be gun rights advocates traditionally. And so the notion here is that, well, yeah, The group that's not mentioned, Democrats, we know they're for gun control, but even these folks who are for less gun control, even they support universal background checks. And so we're supposed to get a sense from this that nearly everyone does. Here we go. What the unemployed spend more time doing. Now, just the headline referencing the unemployed. Why unemployed? Why say what the unemployed spend more time doing rather than what the employed spend more time doing? That right there it might be worth exploration. But check this out. We've got the unemployed are spending more time sleeping, more time watching movies, more time cleaning, more time taking classes, and more time job searching. Now, the job searching, that makes sense. Taking classes, great. Unemployed, or maybe you're deciding to go to school. Cleaning, yeah, you got more time to clean. But these two, these two, the unemployed and TV and movies, that might lead you to think that, well, gee, they're lazy. Well, does that really tell the whole story? Do they sleep more than the employed? Absolutely. But what do the employed have to do that the unemployed don't? Oh yeah, they have to get ready for work. How long does someone take to get ready for work? Maybe an hour, less than an hour. That could explain the difference. TV and movies. They spend over 3 hours watching TV or movies. And yeah, by itself, 3 hours out of your day in front of a TV watching movies, yeah, it seems like a lot. But just because it's more than 126 doesn't mean that 126 itself is a good number, right? Think about the employed. Let's say that you work at 8 to 5. You come home 5 o'clock and then you're going to spend over 2 hours of your evening watching TV. It seems like this 2 hours is a lot more significant than this 3+ hours, just in terms of freedom of time. Again, are we supposed to look at this and say that unemployed are lazy? Perhaps, but is that the true story that's being told, or are there other explanations? Yes, there are. Here's one. You have similar statistics, different goals. Now this one really bothers me on a lot of levels, and really it bothers me independent of how I feel about guns. It's, you know, that's not the point here. If you look at this, one nation under guns, there are 90 guns for every 100 Americans. Let's assume that's true. Don't know if it is, but let's spot them that. So what they've done is they've now taken and they've drawn 10 people. 9 of those individuals have guns. Furthermore, of those 10 people, there's only one woman. Does the woman have a gun? Nope. I find this really offensive. Aside from the, you know, the blatant sexism of men being aggressors with guns and women just standing there with their hands on their hips saying, oh, I'm just a victim. It also makes a grave mistake. 90 guns for every 100 Americans does not mean that 9 out of 10 people own a gun. You ever out in public and you look around and feel like 9 out of every 10 people around you is packing? That's just not true. The question you need to ask is, yeah, if you own a gun, do you own more than one? Now, I don't own guns, but let's just say for the sake of argument that I have 9 guns. Then if myself and 9 other people come around, yeah, then and none of those other people have guns, there are 9 guns for the 10 people represented. But that doesn't mean that 9 of the 10 people themselves actually have a gun. Very misleading. Other issues, if you look over here at this, you've got this, this support for a ban on handguns, which is decreased, but we don't have a linear scale, right? Oops, I'm sorry. We don't have a linear scale here. You've got 1959, you've got 2011. What's the scale? I mean, that if I stretch that out, that might look a lot like a lot slower decline than is led to believe here. We could continue with this, but I think you get the gist, the big one there. The next one, gun control stats. Compare the 10 big killers in the US. And so you've got tobacco use here at number 1 with well over 500,000. And then you've got medical errors. Then you've got unintentional injuries. And we keep going down, down, down. And all of a sudden down here at the bottom, this really tiny, tiny rectangle compared to all that tobacco use. 11,493 homicides by firearm. Now, when you look at this, you're supposed to say, okay, well, gee, if we're so concerned about firearms, why don't I also have to have a 10-day waiting period to buy a bottle of whiskey or to buy cigarettes? Is that fair? I have some problems with these categories. Medical errors, what does that even mean? Unintentional injuries. And then we have unintentional falls. Are those actually different? Is an unintentional fall also an unintentional injury? So why are these separate categories? Unintentional poisoning, is that not an unintentional injury? Very, very misleading. Very contrived categories simply for making the point, look, gun deaths, at least gun homicides, pale in comparison to the number of deaths from these others. And again, for the sake of argument, let's just spot that and give that to them. Okay, so that's true. Doesn't bring up the issue that that's still over 11,000 people. It seems like a lot of people, regardless of how that number fits relative to other deaths. Isn't that still kind of a big number? And so, yeah, there might be other issues, but gee, that doesn't mean that's not an issue. That's a lot of deaths. So again, 2 different graphics, 2 different goals, or same goal, really, right? You're trying to address the gun issue from your different perspectives, but which is true, which is not? Well, and of course, the last one here is we have this wonderfully absurd statistic. Pregnancy, specifically teen pregnancy, drops off significantly after age 25. Now, hopefully most people will read this and chuckle and say, oh my gosh, how did that get past an editor's desk? I'm sure there are also folks who read this and see it as profound. You gotta pay attention. Sometimes things are just blatantly absurd. And as we've seen in the previous ones, sometimes things are just deceptively misleading. So our goal for this course, the big goal, after we've learned all the analytical tools and learned to do inferences and build histograms and all the other wonderful things you're going to learn, 15, 20 years from now, I really hope that you walk away and are able to have said that you have the analytical tools necessary to navigate these seemingly murky statistical waters. Because while statistics are indeed all around us, everywhere, there is such a thing as good statistics, well done statistics, even accurate statistics. This course is going to teach you how to obtain accurate statistics and also how to discern when you're being deceived. Thank you.